Hi, my name is Bolick, and this is Wrestling, the Underdog. It was near the end of wrestling season at the regional championships. There was 2 minutes left in the third period of my championship match, and I was tired. I thought I was going to lose, but his one mistake allowed me to take home the gold. Have you ever had a challenge, a job, or person in your life that has taught you a lesson? One that has impacted you down to the core? Because whenever you wrestle, each step is a lesson. I've been wrestling since the 7th grade, and I worked hard for the last 5 years. In that time, I was a 1-time regional placer, 2-time regional champion, 3-time state qualifier, 2-time state placer, and now I'm a D1 commit at Appalachian State University. So you can say I've seen a lot in my wrestling career. Even though wrestling is one of the hardest sports, it is often the most underrated. Wrestling can teach you valuable lessons you will use for the rest of your life. Wrestling is one of the most hardest sports. This is my first main point. To be successful in high levels of wrestling, you need to have a rare blend of physical power, technical skill, mental toughness, and endurance. Now, cutting weight, it teaches you mental toughness and discipline, because you have to keep yourself in that mentality for such a long period of time. And the strength and conditioning is different than any other sport, because you have to have high cardio and take swift lifting, and then you're inside of a wrestling room practicing for hours on end, and it's harder than any other sport. Now, if wrestling is one of the hardest sports and it should be recognized, why is it so underrated? It's because singlets. You have grown men wrestling in singlets, and it looks sort of homophobic. Now, this usually turns most people off towards wrestling, especially at the high school level, where usually at the high school level, they're able to get behind it, like football and basketball. And then the next reason is there's no professional level wrestling. You have the Olympics and you have college, but technically that isn't professional whenever it comes to like the NFL and the NBA. And finally, you have this kind of professional wrestling. That's all scripted. It's not real. It's not genuine. It doesn't teach you any sort of lesson. It doesn't make you face adversity. It isn't real wrestling. Now, real wrestling is not only rewarding in the aspect of winning a medal, but it also teaches life lessons in each step of life. And each step of wrestling, it teaches you a different lesson. Now, wrestling, the most foremost thing it teaches is hard work. As you can see here, this man had just lost in the Olympics, and he won. Now, this man who lost, he's going to think to himself, all that work I did, it was for nothing. But then whenever he gets home and he thinks about it more, he's going to think that he needs to work harder and he needs to work smarter than this man. And this hard work, it pays off each time. Because for him, he may have lost last year. I think he did lose this match last year. This same matchup, actually. And he came back and he worked hard and he beat this man. The next thing it teaches its confidence, because whenever you beat somebody, you beat them. Nobody can take that away from you. For instance, whenever this past year I was in the semifinals, I beat the state champion who won this year's the week before, and he beat me there, and I couldn't take it back from him. And then another thing I think it teaches is discipline. The discipline that these wrestlers have to go through when they're cutting weight, when they're training for a tournament, is unlike any other sport, because they can get away with more stuff. A football player doesn't have to watch what they eat. A basketball player doesn't have to watch what they eat. They don't have to watch what they put in their bodies. It's completely different. And then, for an example, this is Abigail, and this is at the youth camp that my high school holds for wrestlers from 2nd grade to 6th grade. Abigail was a 4th grader from Claremont Elementary, and she was really feisty and she was ready to learn. But whenever she went to her first tournament, she didn't do so good. I think she won 1 match and she lost the other 3. And it made her really discouraged, but I talked to her after her tournament and she was ready to come back. So the next week at practice, she was practicing hard and she hits her face on the mat, she busts her nose. And whenever she busts her nose, she starts crying and she doesn't feel like she can go on anymore. So after this, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Just keep going. Just keep going, Dad. Okay, so after she gets back up, she starts crying. She tells her she doesn't want to wrestle. I tell her, would you rather give up and knowing that you can never come back on this mat again after this year? Or would you rather get back out there and go face adversity? She went back out there, she practiced harder with a bloody nose, and then she went to the tournament the next weekend and she placed 3rd. And there were like 5 or 6 boys ahead of her, and she had to come back and beat them. And she placed 3rd, and I was so proud of her. And she learned that through hard work and facing adversity, she can win. Now, in this presentation, we went over why wrestling is the hardest sport and how you have to you have to discipline yourself to eat, you have to keep yourself strong, and you have to keep yourself mentally focused. We went over why it's underrated because of the singlets, and how it's sometimes gay, how people judge it because there's no professional level, and how WWE is not wrestling. And then finally, on the 3rd point, that wrestling can teach you valuable life lessons while you wrestle. Now, the next time you see a wrestling mat, or your kid's about to go wrestle, I want you to think, whenever you take a step on that mat, what life lessons you could learn. Thank you.
Yay!